asked McBride, their lawyer, whether the Trump administration had anything to do with their release. And he didn't answer the question directly, but he said, quote, "Do the math." Barron admired the Tates, and he said that he and Barron called Andrew together and discussed the Tates case.
Andrew Tate's legal team seemed genuinely convinced that their personal connections to Donald Trump would be enough to make this entire case quietly disappear. Instead, the opposite has happened, and it's happened fast. The White House went on the record confirming it had no plans to intervene. A sitting congresswoman publicly pushed the president's own son to testify before a congressional committee. Some of Tate's own political allies started putting visible distance between themselves and him.
Donald Trump, you fucking owe Andrew Tate and Tristan. You owe them. I'm just gonna fucking straight out say it.
And somehow, none of that is even the strangest political thread this case has produced. So let's slow down and walk through exactly how a straightforward legal case in two countries managed to turn into this much of a political spectacle, and how quickly it all unraveled. For a while, the assumption inside Tate's camp was fairly simple. They had backed Trump loudly and publicly during the election.
Call Trump and put these fucking spaces on.
Yo, Big D, hold up. Oh, Matrix attack. Gotcha, bro.
Been there.
All right, safe. Safe.
Oh, just gotta wait, I guess.
Yeah, Matrix attack. I'm going to sleep. Good night.
How important is this election in 2024?
It's monumental. It's the fate of the world. The fate of the world is at stake. And I think if the election is fair and free, then it's a done deal. The key word is if. I'm praying that it happens.
Do you think that Trump is also being, pursued by the Matrix?
Do I think? Sir, I know. Everyone knows. The charges against him are complete garbage. The cases against him are complete garbage. And they're doing it to try and stop him getting in power because they don't want him to be president, because they'd rather have a president who doesn't know what's going on so they can just tell his advisor, here's X amount of million, pass this law. That's what they want. The shadow figures want to control the world, and they don't want to have an employee, which is what they'd see him as, who's belligerent. They don't want to have somebody in charge who you can't buy or bribe or blackmail or scare. Trump is going to sit there and say, I have enough money, I'm too old to want more, and I care about my country, I'm going to do what's right for the country. I'm not going to do what's right for you, the big interests and the big money and the globalists. And that's why they're trying to take him down. It's absolutely and utterly, completely a Matrix attack. And when I say it's important for the culture, because it is, because Trump is a masculine man in a world where being masculine is instantly bad for some reason. And it will be massively important for the culture, just as I've been a cultural icon. So is he. And so will he help push the culture in the positive direction of healthy masculinity. So it's extremely important for the culture. It's about the culture. It's about people believing in America again. People saying USA, USA, USA. It's the culture that we need back.
So the logic went that the administration would return the favor when it actually mattered. One of Tate's own friends said that expectation out loud, without much hesitation or nuance. Treating a presidential administration as though it owes someone a personal favor for online support during a campaign is a bold assumption to build an entire legal strategy around. And predictably, it didn't hold up. Just days after that comment started circulating, a Democratic congresswoman sitting on the House Oversight Committee escalated the situation even further.
Waller told me that Barron admired the Tates, and he said that he and Barron called Andrew together and discussed the Tates case. When we reached out for comment, McBride called up reporting on the relationship between Andrew and Barron. They asked McBride, their lawyer, whether the Trump administration had anything to do with their release. And he didn't answer the question directly, but he said, quote, "Do the math. These guys are on the plane." Once they're back in the United States, the Tates are filming themselves partying in Miami, looking at apartments in New York, hobnobbing with Kanye West in Los Angeles. But they weren't welcomed by all. There were some conservatives who spoke out against them upon their arrival. Some said that they undermined traditional conservative values. Other people likened the allegations against them to the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. Through all of this, it's becoming clear that there is a rift on the right.
Bringing an entirely new name into the conversation.
Influence there, they began to realize that there was a responsibility that came with that influence, and they began to sharpen their minds and sharpen their message and geared it toward positivity and strength for young men. And that's what really pissed the government off. It wasn't like, oh, you were saying this stuff before. We were mad. They weren't coming for them then. They came for them as soon as they started saying a man is a man, is a woman is a woman, be strong, do this, be traditional, blah, 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 blah. Then the government came from them. You can say a lot of the wild stuff. The government will never come for you. Start preaching traditional values and masculine excellence, and they come for your head.
Double-edged sword for the government. It's made them bigger.
Way bigger.
Yeah. And so if whatever it is they're doing, and I'll state it this way. If these criminal charges end up fizzling out and dissolving, these guys are going to be wealthier and more powerful than they ever were before.
100%. And another thing to do is to pay attention to the Florida case that we're litigating, right? Because we're litigating the same set of facts under different laws. It's the same set of facts in the American legal system.
When reporters reached out to McBride for comment on the matter, he flatly dismissed the reporting about any relationship between Andrew Tate and the president's youngest son, calling it fake news. That denial didn't stop an Arizona representative from following through with an actual formal letter addressed to the Oversight Committee chair, requesting subpoenas for both Justice Department and State Department records, along with separate requests that the 20-year-old testify about anything he might know regarding the case. Fair about what that letter actually says, because the details matter here. It doesn't accuse anyone of committing a crime. No subpoena has actually been issued at this point. It's simply a request for a formal inquiry, not a finding of any wrongdoing whatsoever. And the basis for even bringing his name into this traces back to a single, fairly thin source, someone who described themselves as an associate of the Tate brothers, telling a major newspaper that he'd personally arranged a video call between the two of them back in 2024, during what was described as a suit fitting, where they reportedly talked mostly about the campaign, rather than anything connected to the legal case itself. That's an incredibly thin foundation to build a congressional subpoena request on, but it was apparently enough to generate national headlines regardless. When reporters eventually pressed the White House directly on whether it intended to intervene in any way, the response they got back wasn't complicated at all.
It seems like the Trump family is just so inseparable from this Andrew and Tristan Tate story. Melania Trump's presser a few months back saying that she was not a participant of the Epstein stuff was almost certainly driven by Amanda Ungaro. Amanda Ungaro was an Epstein victim who had a child with Paolo Zampolli, who brought Melania to the U.S. Andrew and Tristan Tate spent the days before their arrest in Miami partying in Washington, D.C. as guests of Paolo Zampolli, Donald Trump's U.S. Special Envoy for Global Partnerships and a longtime friend of Trump and Melania. It goes even beyond that. There was a very warm, friendly, weird interview between Andrew Tate and the very same Paolo Zampolli earlier this year. They're very friendly throughout it. They're sitting there mucking it up. They're like very close friends. And this is where we reintroduce Amanda Ungaro. She is claiming that her ex-husband is entirely lying about the Melania Trump introduction.
Let's tell the public you never was the one introducing Melania to Trump. It was Jeffrey Epstein. She was a escort of Jeffrey Epstein.
Melania Trump then comes out and decides to make a statement.
I have never had any knowledge of Epstein abuse of his victims.
There is a very weird connective tissue here between the way the Trump admin is constantly morally laundering the reputation of the most vile figures. People like Paul Ingrassia, people like Jeffrey Epstein, people like Zampolli, people like Trump himself, people like the Tate brothers, who were quite literally arrested in Miami and would have been arrested sooner if the Trump admin hadn't stopped and stifled investigations. And finally, on top of all of this, Melania Trump.
You've got the Tate brothers' lawyer, Joseph McBride, who we heard earlier. He says the Tate brothers are American citizens who deserve full American constitutional protections. There should be no extradition of American citizens when the charges are unclear and political. What do you say to that?
Well, there's quite a bit to unpack there. I mean, firstly, yes, they're American citizens, but they're also British citizens.
They both had dual citizenship.
They're dual nationals.
Yeah.
Correct. The alleged victims are British. The alleged crimes were committed on British soil. So the UK courts have got jurisdiction. There's no argument about that at all. As to Mr. McBride's statements that this is some sort of political persecution, well, you can go ahead and say it's political persecution, but it doesn't make it so. On what basis is he saying that? He's offered no explanation as to why this is a
release. He avoided giving a clear, straightforward answer either way. But what he did say still pointed toward exactly the kind of suspicious timeline people had already picked up on. And almost as soon as they were back in the country, the brothers wasted no time showing it off publicly, filming themselves socializing with well-known names within days. That welcome clearly wasn't unanimous, though plenty of conservatives pushed back hard, arguing it undermined the very values the movement claims to stand for. But Tate's alignment with Trump isn't some recent development tied only to this case. He was actively defending Trump online through Trump's own past legal troubles, years before any of this current situation even began. It's all a coordinated conspiracy against powerful men framework to two completely different legal situations is, at the very least, internally consistent. Whether it's actually accurate is a separate question entirely, and one that deserves real scrutiny on its own. That overlap with Trump's inner circle also connects directly to something else, a genuinely separate, heavily disputed controversy that has somehow become tangled up in the same story through one shared mutual associate. Here's what actually holds up under scrutiny in that claim, and what doesn't quite hold together. The Tate brothers reportedly did spend time in Washington as guests of a longtime Trump associate who's now serving in a diplomatic role tied to global partnerships. Separately, and on its own completely independent timeline, Melania Trump gave an on-camera statement earlier this year denying any relationship whatsoever with Jeffrey Epstein, and specifically denying that he was ever the one who introduced her to her husband. That same associate has claimed for years that he was the one who made that introduction personally, though conflicting accounts have since surfaced, including a dispute from someone previously connected to him directly. None of that has actually been resolved one way or another. And importantly, all of it remains a completely separate matter from the Tate brothers' own criminal charges. So, realistically, this connection reflects an overlapping social circle among well-connected people, not any actual evidence tied to the Tate case itself. It's worth being aware of as context, but it shouldn't be treated as proof of something it simply doesn't establish. Now, back to the actual legal side of things. Tate's lawyer has his own theory for why the government suddenly took serious interest in the brothers after apparently not caring much for years beforehand. Clip 11, according to McBride, the real backlash only started once the brothers leaned harder into a traditional masculinity message and began building genuine political influence around that message specifically, not because of anything they'd actually said or done before that particular shift. That's a fairly convenient timeline